Animation takes time, a lot of time. My last project? It took me 130 hours to create just 2 minutes of animation. But today, I'm setting myself a crazy challenge. Create a complete animation in just 1 hour. From scratch. No script, no characters, no background, nothing planned. The only thing I know is that I want to make a fairy. Oh dear. The thought of it is already stressing me out, but I'm curious to see what I can accomplish in such a tight time frame. Will I pull it off? Let's dive in and find out. Let's get into the motion. The first thing I do is search Pinterest for some quick inspiration. After a few scrolls, I spot a reference that looks magical, perfect for my fairy theme. To save time, I'm starting with Pearl from Cartoon Animator's Dynamic Character Package. I like her yellow top and skirt, which will be the base for my fairy design. I open Composer mode and export Pearl as an SVG file into Adobe Illustrator for customization. Once the layers are open, I start tweaking. 1. I remove the sleeves to make her top sleeveless. 2. I delete the logo in the middle of her shirt. 3. I adjust the color palette, based on a fairy color palette I found online, which has the mood of my Pinterest reference. At first, I try giving her blonde hair and blue eyes to match the reference, but it doesn't look quite right. So, I switch to purple hair, and it instantly feels more magical. I also resize the top and neck shadow for a more fairy look, then save my work to update the character in Cartoon Animator. Important note: always save your file frequently and make backups. When I reload the character in Cartoon Animator, her position is off. Thankfully, it's a quick fix. I adjust her parts back to their original spots and move on. What's a fairy without wings? I decide to use Cartoon Animator's default butterfly prop as a shortcut. In Composer mode, I realize I can't attach the butterfly, so I switch back to Stage mode. I resize the butterfly, position it behind the character, and adjust its colors to match the palette. Lowering the opacity gives the wings a translucent, delicate look. To animate the wings, I test out the butterfly's default fly motion. At first, it looks stiff, so I tweak the timing and smoothen it out. Now, the fairy flutters her wings naturally. The fairy looks good, but her expression feels too serious. I swap out her sprite for a softer, happier look. However, her mouth color feels off, so I quickly adjust it for better harmony. At the halfway mark of the challenge, I'm still not fully satisfied with my fairy. Determined to improve her design, I head back to Composer mode and export the character to SVG for more edits. First, I lower the top to give her outfit a softer, more whimsical look. The band on her waist feels too plain, so I randomly add a detail. And somehow, it ends up looking like a leaf. It's a happy little accident that fits perfectly. Next, I focus on her hair. It feels too lumpy, so I add some fine lines to give it more texture and dimension. I also notice her eyebrows are barely visible, so I fix that too. Back in Cartoon Animator, I realize I forgot to tweak the length of her hair. A quick adjustment makes it longer and flowing, adding the final touch of elegance she needed to truly feel like a fairy. Next, I need a background. I choose a dark forest. It's perfect for a magical vibe. I enlarge it and position it behind the fairy. I now can imagine the fairy flying out of the forest and up into the sky, but the background feels too short for this idea. To fix this, I duplicate the forest, flip it, and stack the layers to create a taller scene. It even gives a reflection effect, an unplanned but welcome addition. I also want to add a solid black background to enhance the reflection effect. I try searching for one within Cartoon Animator, but can't find what I need. Under the time crunch, my brain freezes. I could have quickly made one in Illustrator, but instead, I leave the extension as it is, slightly misaligned. It's not perfect, but it works for now. With the setup complete, it's time to animate. I envision the fairy ending her journey in front of the moon, gracefully flapping her wings. I create a motion path for the fairy, guiding her upward toward the moon. To add depth, I adjust her size along the path, making her appear closer or farther away at different points. To make it dynamic, I add a camera that follows her motion, as well as a wide shot to capture the entire scene. I start with an extreme wide shot to follow the fairy as she moves through the scene. Continuous wing flapping feels distracting, so I tweak the animation, timing the flaps to occur at specific intervals for a more natural effect. I add a second wide shot to give a broader view of the fairy in her environment. To enhance the movement, I link the camera to her torso for a dynamic feel. Finally, I create a close-up shot, zooming in on her face for the last scene where she stays in place, flapping her wings gently. With just 5 minutes left, I add small details to make the fairy more alive. I animate her eyes blinking during the wide shot. Copying and pasting the blinks across frames saves me time. Now it's time to bring it all together. With a deep breath, I hit render, exporting the animation in MP4. All 157 meticulously crafted frames ready to come to life. And here it is. A 5-second fairy animation created in just 1 hour. It was stressful and challenging, but I'm happy with what I accomplished. Of course, there are things I wish I had more time to make it better. A proper black background and reflection. Sparkling magic effects around the fairy. Smoother wing flapping and more flowing motion in the skirt. Additional highlights and shading for me the character. Some motion blur. Some face motion. Some back-facing fairy. And the list goes on. Still, Cartoon Animator 5's tools and default assets made it possible to finish this challenge. What about you? Feeling stuck or procrastinating? Try this 1-hour animation challenge. It's a great way to push your creativity, and you might surprise yourself with what you can create. If you want to see more animation challenges, or join me next time, let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep creating and stay in motion.